Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke and welcome to my channel. About a year ago I started weekly live streams in which I would pick a Warband mod and proceed to completely beat it. First we played Paris Snow, which was a lot of fun, then we moved on to Walda, which was more challenging, but we beat it nonetheless. But then we moved on to what is quite possibly the most difficult mod there is to play on Warband, and that is A World of Ice and Fire, which is an adaptation of the Game of Thrones books and show. This mod was so hard that within 3 sessions, we decided to start a whole new campaign just to lower the difficulty, only to barely make any progress in a second campaign anyway, which led me to start cheating and then crash out. So after making videos summarizing the Paris Snow and Walda campaigns, this video is about how I gave up on the World of Ice and Fire because of how ridiculously hard it is. That being said, while you can learn from my mistakes, I want to point out that while I was learning to play this mod without cheats on the go, there are some YouTubers that have played this mod extensively and know what they're doing. Namely, there is Sultan of Sultans, who recently released an insane 4-hour-long guide on how to play the mod, which if you want to master, you should definitely check out. There's also Warbs, who's been playing the mod extensively on his channel, so make sure to check them both out, links in the description. So for my campaign, I chose to play as a Northerner and follow the mod's storyline, which meant starting the game immediately at war with the Westerlands as I left King's Landing. The goal from there was to loosely follow the quest line while doing my best not to die, which was easier said than done. When it comes to this mod, there are a lot of difficulty settings which can be tweaked, but choosing to enable them is what can make this mod drastically hard. Namely, among them, there's the battle wound system, which means that if you get hit especially hard, you'll incur penalties such as loss of skills, which may become permanent if you fail to see a maester to treat the injury in time. There's also the resting mechanic for the Warband, which makes it so that if you don't frequently stop traveling to rest your troops, morale will immediately plummet and lead to desertions. Then of course there's realistic damage, which means you will typically fall after a hit or two, even with some of the best armor. But ultimately, the one difficulty setting which seemingly cannot be disabled or tweaked that makes everything cripplingly difficult is the high cost of everything. Upgrading troops in this mod is insanely expensive, higher tier weapons and armors are insanely expensive, and companions can also be insanely expensive, with Braun for example costing like 150k. Insane, I say. So the first thing I learned very quickly while starting this campaign is that fighting for experience and loot is a huge gamble best avoided, as demonstrated by this montage. Bruh! Ah! Ah! Oh my god, how did this happen? Oh, you kidding? Damn! Oof. Jesus. You kidding me? I really hate this. Jesus Christ, man! 48 damage? What's the point of armor? What is the point of armor? That's my question. Instead, with the help of my chat, which predominantly featured Warbs, I learned to do train runs for making money without battles. And it's pretty much the only tip I can share with you, so let's break it down. In the World of Ice and Fire, you can do a lot of trading where specific goods can be bought for relatively cheap in certain regions, and always sell for a higher price in other ones. So the trade run would go as follow. Buy furs in the north, where they're almost always very cheap, and then you take a ferry from White Harbor to Sisterton and Gulltown in the Vale, then to Dragonstone, and then Maidenpool, where furs can easily sell for 10 times the price you paid for it. In Dragonstone, you can also buy stone and iron for very cheap, so as you keep selling your inventory and travel, you can also pick up salt in the Riverlands for cheap, and from there you can travel by land to go back up north, where you can sell the salt, the iron, and the stones at a much higher margin. Basically, you just keep doing this trade triangle, and you can make a lot of money from it. The only challenge is that in the Riverlands, provided you're doing the storyline, you're very vulnerable, if not from large group of bandits, then from Lannister armies. And while the ferry from White Harbor is pretty cheap, the cost goes up exponentially if you have a Warband with you, so it's much cheaper to do trade runs alone. So most of my campaign was spent doing this trade run, as it was the only reliable way I had of making lots of money. Well, that in tournaments, but those often went sideways also. Last round. Better not mess this up. Back on foot against a guy on horse. Great. What? No! I was hoping he would run into the wall, but he managed to hit me a fraction of a second before giving me his own hit, and that was it. Oh my god. I did manage to get a Warband going, but I was always being reset from the recurring crushing defeat I would inevitably get. So by the third session, I ended up missing the red winning quest, and things were progressing so slowly that along with chat, we agreed to start a new game at lower difficulty. For the new game, we lowered the damage received, both for myself and for my troops, and we also disabled the resting mechanic for the Warband. As a result from this, as well as from using the knowledge I gathered from the previous campaign, I was quickly able to rise back up to where I was in the previous game. And I had a few defeats, but overall was able to win fights that I wasn't able to before. And I even became a lord in the north, where I got in numerous battles against the invading Iron Man. I also started doing more unique quests, including a new one with the pirate Orain Waters, which had me do a fairly big sea battle, reminiscent of Viking Conquest. There is a quest to build a castle in Essos which you get from Janice Lyran in the Crossroads Inn, but if you already follow a faction when building the castle, your ruler can take the castle from you, which is exactly what happened to me, so thanks Bruce. Speaking of Roose Bolton, I still managed to miss the red winning quest as I was on a ferry when it happened, so it auto-resolved. Fantastic. To be fair, I did make a lot more progress in this easier campaign. At one point, while I was doing quests in Essos, I ended up at war with the Dothraki, who had captured the city of Norvos, so I took the city from them and became the lord of that town. And despite being heavily outnumbered, the Dothraki don't wear armor, and so almost every battle with them always turned into a slaughter. However, it became very difficult to travel both from the north and back to Essos to defend all my lands, so eventually I lost Norvos and moved on. But despite this progress, I was still dealing with two crippling issues that made it nearly impossible to progress past a certain point. The first one, as I've said before, is that everything in this mod is so damn expensive, especially the elite upgrades for your soldiers. At one point I had over 50,000 stacks in my inventory, but I spent all of it just upgrading like 20 soldiers. So at this point I still had to do trade runs just to recover from my expenses, which meant leaving all of my troops in my camp, which is a feature from the mod that lets you station your troops if you don't have a castle, and I would do that so I could take the cheaper ferry down south to sell more furs by myself. But the other crippling problem is that because the wars are based on the story, we were in an endless war with the Iron Man, who could always spawn warbands to attack the north, while it was impossible for us to attack the Iron Islands. This would always force me to put whatever I'm doing on pause, just to go back north and defend my lands for the 100th time. Another big point of frustration was an actual glitch in which if you stayed in a town that was being besieged, you would not actually get a prompt to join the siege defense. On multiple occasions I was awarded Barrowton, which is a town near Winterfell, but it was constantly attacked by the Iron Man, and at one point on stream, I managed to get into the town, ready to fight the enemies back when they attacked, and no joke, they attacked the town with me in it, I didn't get the prompt, and they captured it even though I was there with my full warband. Wait. How? Okay, this is clearly a bug. There's no way this makes sense. I'm just in the town chilling, they're conquering and everything, and I'm just there like taking a nap, you know, and then I wake up and it's like, oh, I guess I gotta leave now. It was at this point that the chat convinced me to start cheating. As I've said, the reality is that making any progress past a certain point generally felt impossible. You can never make any significant progress if your faction is always being attacked, and everything being so expensive means I could never go on the offensive for long before having to do more trade runs and more tournaments. So after so much grind, and now dealing with a siege glitch that worked against me, I decided to start cheating. At first I just wanted to give myself enough money to comfortably pay for my troops while skipping the trading grind. But the problem is that when you start cheating, it just gets too damn easy. Because we could not make peace with the Iron Islands, I resorted to use cheats to teleport myself to the islands so I can attack the castles. But from there, I would get attacked by their lords obviously, but considering I had already beaten them many times without cheats and that I could easily upgrade all of my troops to elite now, I didn't see a point anymore to just have all of those battles. Obviously I would win, so it would just be more grind to get through. So I started skipping them with Ctrl Alt F4, but again, what was the point of playing now if I could just skip all of the battles? Maybe I start doing the same with the castles just to skip that other grind. I started losing interest in the campaign almost immediately, so I started to shift my focus towards something else, the Varys questline. In the quest, you can help Varys bring Aegon and the Golden Company to invade Westeros. This is an event from the books, completely left out of the show. Part of the reason I started cheating was also to complete this quest, since part of it requires giving Varys 12 Bravo Sea South swords, which were already hard to find, but even harder to train and keep alive. I had been at it for several sessions actually, but every time I got close to getting all 12, I would get defeated in battle, some of them would die, and I'd have to start over. By using cheats I was able to speedrun this quest as I wanted to see how Aegon's invasion would play out. And it is pretty cool. Aegon, along with Jon Connington and the Golden Company, show up with massive armies, which also triggers Dorne to declare war on the Westerlands. I myself, having lost interest in my own campaign, decided to leave the north to join Aegon just to see what would happen. And all that happened was, I ended up staying in Jon Connington's castle at Griffin's Roost, while Aegon slowly but surely started taking every castle in the Stormlands. With Dragonstone and Dorne also at war with the Westerlands, they were pushed out of the area around King's Landing, and that was that. I myself, having introduced cheating to my game after going through so much grind, I didn't want to play the mod anymore. Camping felt broken beyond repair, and I had been at it for so long. The next step would have been to wait for the White Walkers to invade, but I had set it to day 1200, which was still a long way from now, so no thanks. Normally I end these videos with a showcase of my character, my stats and everything, but I cheated my own level, I cheated my money, and pretty much everything else. The only real thing left is my equipment, which I either bought or earned a while ago before I started cheating, including this sword, which is pretty OP. This is Owain Water's sword from the Ballad of Sea and Serpents quest. This is a Valyrian steel sword, so technically I can fight White Walkers and ice zombies with it, but I haven't gotten around to it. And so, that's all there is to it. The first campaign that got me to start a new campaign with lowered settings got me to start cheating and crash out anyway. A World of Ice and Fire is a great mod, but it's also insanely hard. So thanks for watching everyone, and again, if you're interested in playing this mod, check out the videos in the description. I've been live streaming almost every Friday for the past year now, so if you want to hang out with me during one of my campaigns, make sure to join the live streams. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.